and welcome to my spoiler review of Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. Sometimes I say, hey, this video is for people who've seen the movie, aren't going to see the movie, or don't mind spoilers. And I have to say, in this instance, if you have any intention of seeing this movie, I would wait to watch this episode until after you have. Because there's so little story in Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, I don't think that you'd want to have what little there is spoiled for you. But today we're going to discuss in depth the film, as much as you can for a film that doesn't have that much depth, but it has some really interesting performances, some interesting risks taken in terms of, cinematic artistry. So that's going to be a little bit of the viewpoint today for how we discuss this film. And once again, going to go by characters. So if you've turned off annotations, you might want to turn them back on so that you can see the table of contents here to skip around as you see fit. Now let's start out with Sin City's #1 citizen, Marv, of course played by Mickey Rourke. In the trailer, I had my trailer reviews, I had said the special effects looked quite bad here, especially Mickey Rourke's Marv head, which really looks like it was cut out of like a foam finger from a sports event. But I think things really must have not been rendered properly in time for the trailers to be cut, because here it worked. And Mickey Rourke really does a great job with this role, and I really do think that he's not only the #1 citizen of Sin City, but its heart. Its broken, beaten up, bloody heart. And he does a really good job tying the different storylines together about someone who's just at this bar for people to use as they see fit, and really almost superhuman. But you know what? What I like about it is, even though Marv can do these incredible, almost superheroic acts of violence or vengeance, depending how you want to look at it, Rodriguez and Miller keep him real enough that he reminds you of that guy in all these rough, neighborhoods that can do that. That is that kind of guy that you can count on, who does seem almost legendary. And I really like that. It reminds me actually, my grandfather was a little bit of a guy like that. Apparently, I sadly did not get to know him, but he was that kind of person to tell from my mother's stories from Pittsburgh back in the day. And a tough guy, a drinker, a gambler, a smoker, but a stand-up guy that you could depend on, and really had a heart of gold. So I guess maybe that's also why I have a bit of a soft spot for Marv. He just seems like a really cool guy, and I thought Mickey Rourke played him perfectly, and I wish Mickey Rourke had more roles to this quality for him to choose from. I think this is even more something that he should be remembered for than his work, for instance, in The Wrestler, which of course was supposed to give him a lot of a brand new lease on his career, but then Sean Penn won the Oscar. All right, so that's the first character. The second, I'm going to go actually kind of in the order they're revealed in the movie. So next to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he was really good here. He also benefited from some very good dialogue and special effects. The way they break his hand, I'm really impressed with the way Robert Rodriguez was able to have that gnarled up hand that he has for a couple of scenes in the film. That's something that's actually quite customary in comic books, the character with the mangled hand, because it's easy to draw. But it's very hard, of course, to do that realistically in movies. And no one's really worked on it too much today, even with special effects. We saw some of that actually in Looper, when they were cutting the body up through time. That was pretty, I think, iconic and fascinating. But still, I think that here it was great because so much of this movie reminded me of a comic. And I think as a comic book reader, I also have a special appreciation for it that non-comic book readers might not have. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a really good job. And also his storyline takes quite a break for a while they deal with Josh Brolin's. So I think that it was good they had Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the role, because he was strong enough for you to be like, oh yeah, I do care about what's going on here. I'm glad we're going back to this. Also, I was happy to see that I didn't see it coming, the twist that was his father, Rourke. Because, recently I saw Bad Words, and like as soon as I saw, I forget the actor's name, but the guy who runs the spelling bee, I was like, Jason Bateman's dad. That's why he's doing this. I knew it immediately upon seeing it. But here they do a very good job of, I was like, what? I didn't see that. He looks nothing like you. I don't see any family resemblance, Rourke. But I just thought the whole way the card game was played, the way that police officer warned him about, or police commissioner warned him about protecting himself, the way he dealt with Marcy, who I'll talk about a little bit later, actually. no, I'm talking about her next. Sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes here. I thought Marcy also did. Marcy, Julia Garner should get credit for doing quite a nice job in helping out these scenes. But first, we're talking about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So he just did a really nice job. And I also like the fact they had the guts to kill his character off. I thought that was fantastic. Sin City is a place where you don't always get out alive. And I think it was important when it wasn't really being underscored with other characters that it was underscored here with him. Very nice work. Joseph Gordon-Levitt continues to be, I think, a really strong actor. Now, Julia Garner, as I said, played Marcy. I actually got the chance to interview her about a year ago for an indie film that she did. And, she didn't make quite an impression, I'm sorry to say, in person, but she did a very nice job here playing this kind of like ditzy, almost Harley Quinn-like type character. She was a very good match. In terms of age and physical match with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. She looked like a dame he could handle, although unfortunately it turned out not to be the case. And, I think it's to her credit that her death actually really bothered me. And I talk a little bit about the misogyny in the movie in my non-spoiler review, and her character is where I felt it the most. Because she really made me care about her very quickly, and she seemed so nice and a little on the ball, but not too on the ball, unfortunately. And then, when her character was so viciously killed, and we don't see it, but it's obviously alluded to quite effectively. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character has a line, well, we'll feel sorry later on. And you're like, wow, poor Marcy. All she did was go up to a guy in a bar and look what happened to her. And, she just thought maybe she got a little bit of a bit of luck, and it turned out to be, I guess she wasn't Lady Luck after all. But she did a very nice job, and I thought the way she was, using her fully in color was great because I think it showed her innocence and her naivete. And I just really thought that the two of them did a very strong job here with their with this storyline. Now, of course, Rourke, Powers Boothe, this is, he's practically playing himself. This is the role that he's made a specialty of his in Hollywood, and he plays it obviously very well here. I commented in my opening, my non-spoiler review about the quality of the highlights that were going on in this film, and the people who had the best highlights were Powers Boothe and, who I will discuss later, Ray Liotta. Really striking the way not only their eyes were lit, but they actually, Rodriguez is very fortunate. These guys have very striking eyes, just the way their eyelashes are there. It's funny to talk about Powers Boothe and Ray Liotta's eyelashes, but you'll know what I'm talking about when you see the movie. But Powers Boothe, he's usually a TV actor, and I felt he might be a little too TV here. I thought he rose to the occasion. He had some really horribly delicious evil things to say, and he did a good job saying them in a deliciously evil manner. And he was always very evil. He was a little J.R. Ewing-like. I'm watching Dallas right now, the new season, and I'm really enjoying it, the new generation. And I think that Powers Boothe tapped into that. And the reason I bring it up is that I heard a quote Larry Hagman had given advice to the actor who's playing his son, John Ross Jr., who's taking, John Ross, or I think he's actually the third, taking over the J.R. villain role. And Larry Hagman had said, have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Just enjoy, taking advantage of all these suckers who aren't in your league, and the audience will have fun with you as well. And I think Powers Boothe followed that same advice quite well. He had fun with the role, and therefore he was fun to watch, even though he played such a despicable character. Also, the benefits of when you're playing these evil characters, like Walter White, etc., Lex Luthor, is that when you play them in this way, it's like the audience is like, well, you're horrible, but you need to hold on to your power, so I understand where you're coming from. It's also like, the Godfather films, etc. So I think that even though the things that Powers Boothe's character Rourke does are so horrible, they're not that motivation, unlike his son, who is just a sick monster. So that's Powers Boothe. Then, okay, Ray Liotta now, we're going in order. Ray Liotta and Juno Temple have just one scene, but they both did, again, such a great job. The female characters in this movie, the actresses do a solid job. Unfortunately, you'll notice they can't get the same caliber of actress as they do actor. And I think that's because the roles for the women aren't fleshed out in terms of character development. They're just fleshed out in terms of the amount of skin shown. And some very frank sex scenes. And so, Juno Temple, so they're getting actresses here who want the work, but, they're not quite at the same level as their male counterparts in terms of acting ability, which I guess kind of works because they're not supposed to be at the same level in terms of intellect either. But still, Juno Temple had a great line where when, Josh Brolin, jumps in to save her, and she's like, kill him, because Ray Liotta was going to kill her, and she's just so vicious and desperate about it, and just turns on Ray Liotta on a dime because, for survival. And I thought that was great. And as a damsel in distress, she still had instructions, and I thought that was very Sin City. So I thought that she was good. And Ray Liotta, at first I was like, oh, Ray Liotta, this is so pathetic. You look horrible in this scene. But as he got angrier and angrier and his character was getting more and more upset, and the way that Rodriguez lit the scene with the eye line again, it was just really captivating. And I thought Ray Liotta did so much with so little. So I was very impressed with that. So Josh Brolin, he's introduced spying on them. He comes in and he saves the day. And they play him up as a stand-up guy, who's being taken advantage of by his ex-girlfriend, Ava Lord, played by Eva Green. And Josh Brolin, he's fine. I mean, he's not bad, but I think he was the least impressive out of the group because he just was Josh Brolin. I mean, this is a role we've seen Josh Brolin play so many times at this point. I wonder if Thanos is just going to come across the exact same way. He's not a particularly expressive actor. He's not a particularly charismatic actor. But, Dwight's not supposed to be any of those things either. So he doesn't hurt the role. He just doesn't make it anything in particular special. But considering the crazy characters he has to play off of, Marv, Ava, Manute, which we'll get to, it's not, I think it's good to have him be a little stiff, a little undefined, because there's already enough personality going on here anyway. Also, who else knew it was immediately him as soon as he stepped off the train? I mean, that was a good makeup job with the fake nose and the hair parted in the middle. He went to Harrison Ford's hairstylist, I guess. If you watch my videos regularly, you'll notice that I talked about Harrison Ford's ridiculous middle part in The Expendables 3 the other day. But anyway, I was immediately, as soon as he got off the train, I was like, that's Josh Brolin, so I'm not surprised that Manute was like, nice try. Josh Brolin, you messed your face up for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, Brolin did a serviceable job in the film, but he wasn't anything to write home about. Which I think was Eva's complaint probably in the first place. Eva Green, the dame to kill for. As I said, quite a bit of nudity, as I pointed out in my non-spoiler review, but we know from previous films that Eva Green has no problem with nudity. And I think one of the reasons she's getting so much work recently is because she's the only actress, I think, of her mainstream caliber that she's somewhat known to the mainstream. She's not like Sasha Grey hiring a porn actress who's so she's a legitimate actress who's willing to do an incredible amount of nudity and simulated sex scenes. So Rodriguez is like, she's willing to do it, let's go to town. Although somewhere I'm sure Rose McGowan is like, what the hell, man? I would do that, but I guess it's too awkward because she did it in real life with Rodriguez. But Green, to her credit, she's very good at playing a villain. I still think she'd be a great Wonder Woman. And if her top fell down because there are no straps on it, she'd be fine. She'd just keep fighting. So I think Eva Green is a very talented actress. I really liked her a lot in 300 Rise of an Empire, and she excels here in another Frank Miller project here with Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. Really good use of color with her green eyes for greed. I thought that was excellent. And she does a lot with the role. Also, there's quite a bit of humor, not just, unintentionally from her gratuitous nudity, but the way she plays manipulating these guys, and that she's so aware she's manipulating them, and it's so easy. She really plays it for laughs, and I think she does a great job with it. So Eva Green, despite her being, a big thing of objectification in the movie, even as a female moviegoer, you can't help but like her character because she's almost winking at the other women in the audience, being like, see, it's so easy to manipulate these guys. And I have to say, it was ridiculously easy to manipulate guys in Sin City. It's like they'd never seen a film noir film and had no idea that this stuff was, pretty obvious and so easy to spot if you were aware of it. So let's move on to actually some of the guys she manipulated. Dennis Haysbert as Manute. I have to say, out of everyone in this film, he was the only one that I felt was miscast. I just couldn't believe that Dennis Haysbert would hurt anybody. Even when he was punching people through walls, and Eva Green came up with that ridiculous story about how he'd sexually tortured her, I was like, that guy, I don't believe it. He's a sweetheart. Nice try. I mean, Josh Brolin apparently was not familiar with Dennis Haysbert, but so I think but it wasn't just what Dennis Haysbert brought to the role in terms of his past performances and his relationship with us as an actor, actor to audience, but he just looks too nice. I think he was just not a good choice for the role. I wonder if he really is that tall. He was so much taller than everybody else. He must have been standing on something. But I just think there are a lot of other actors who would have done more with the role and would have been a better fit. And so Manute never really came off the page to me. He never became real because I just didn't buy Dennis Haysbert in the role. Then Rosario Dawson as Gail, Jamie Chung as Miho, and the rest of the girls in Sin City. I think this is kind of like, you know, Rodriguez's and Miller's female empowerment aspect of the film, kind of almost like look at me with my names this morning, Zack Snyder and Sucker Punch. It's almost the exact same thing, where, you know, they're like, sure, they're dressed like hookers, but they're kicking ass, so therefore they're awesome, and, you know, you can feel great about them, and everyone's like, that's not female empowerment, you guys, that's male fantasy. And they're like, but aren't they both? And you're like, not really, especially because Gail's character, you know, Rosario Dawson, was like, I don't care that Josh Brolin doesn't love me. I love him forever, and I will risk my life and the lives of my team and the people who do care about me to save some guy who's actually more in love with some other woman and always will be. I was like, what? I don't know why her team didn't quit right there. Although I have to say, when I was watching her team take down the Lord Estate Guards, it really reminded me a lot of the current all-female X-Men title. I was like, oh, there's Storm, and I do think Rosario Dawson would make a great Storm, and Jamie Chung is Psylocke. This is awesome. I think maybe because I just read the comic the other day, the latest issue, but that's what it reminded me of. Jamie Chung was very good, and Rosario Dawson, they were very good in their roles. They were just kind of silly roles. Then I have to say, Jessica Alba as Nancy. I know she's a Rodriguez favorite, and I think he gave her this really, you know, he gave her this role. I mean, she does seem like the girl next door stripper. And by the way, her strip show was the most depressing strip show ever, and I can't believe anybody still wanted to watch it. And they were like, no one at the bar who worked there in management was like, what the heck is wrong with you? You know, guys come here to forget. I mean, at the end, at least, Marv was like, this is depressing, okay? But, you know, the rest of the time, it wasn't that much better either. I don't know finally why at the end he was like, now I see it, she's sad. But I think that Jessica Alba, you know, I commend her for having such a nice role and working so hard to tackle it. But at the end of the day, I think her acting ability just wasn't there. And again, it's another situation where the roles here aren't good enough to justify stronger actresses coming on board to take them on. So this is the best that Rodriguez and Miller can get. And so Jessica Alba is serviceable, but not serviceable the way in the Josh Brolin is. She's serviceable in the way you're like, well, who else is really going to play this role, right? It's the best that he can hope for. Not that she doesn't really bring anything to it, but does a good job. And also, I was kind of disappointed that at the end of the day, she still needed help. I mean, I would have liked to have seen one female member or one female character in all of Sin City have her own storyline where she got things done on her own and it didn't revolve around a guy. I mean, I guess to be fair, a lot of the male storylines revolved around a dame, so it was kind of like quid pro quo, but at the same time, the guys were able to get things done largely on their own. But, you know, no woman, I mean, it would have been great if she just, at the end of the day, you know, toughened up and shot Rourke, and she didn't need Harrigan to help her. But I guess, you know, that's not who Nancy was, and I think she would lose her Nanciness, you know, her kind soul. That is why all these guys fell in love with her. I mean, you can cut up her face, and you can cut off her hair. And I did think it was clever that she was like, you know, I know how I'll get someone to help me. I'll just cut up my face and tell them who did it. And I'm like, again, it's the oldest trick in the book. You guys in Sin City are super dumb. I'd be like, look, give me a witness who said that this happened. Who else? You know, I don't believe it. Rourke's never really even talked to you before. So I don't know. We'll see. But I thought, you know, interesting role, and Jessica Alba was the best they could get to play it. Then finally, there are some cameos here that I thought were quite good. Then we'll talk about the talent behind the film. I have to say, Lady Gaga, Robert Rodriguez did her a real favor here because he wrote her the perfect role. Casting her as a waitress in a diner, you know, who says Joseph Gordon-Levitt reminds her of an old boyfriend and she gives him $1, it was a perfect role for her. The way that she was made up was perfect for Lady Gaga. The lines were perfect for her. It was just a really great, I didn't get to see her in Machete Kills, but here she was utilized perfectly, and she did a really good job. I was really impressed, and I thought she really fit in Sin City quite well, and I liked the way they used her, playing up, you know, almost her Madonna-like qualities, you know, her Italian background, and also that ironically she was one of the nice girls in town, and I just thought she was really, really good. A little Cher-like also as well, you know, Moonstruck, that kind of a feel, and I really thought she was great, and it made me want to see more from Lady Gaga as an actress. Then also Christopher Lloyd shows up. Christopher Lloyd did not come off as well as Lady Gaga, I'm afraid. He had some bad jokes. He's unwilling to change his look. I don't understand. I'm like, Christopher Lloyd, if you just cut your hair, you would go so much further. People would just be like, oh, this is new and interesting. Instead, you're like, Doc, what happened to you? And, you know, I don't know why he would be willing to do major surgery for the cost of some shoes. Maybe a favor, but I'd just be like, you know, I mean, he was just there basically to be Christopher Lloyd and for you to be like, wow, Christopher Lloyd's really in a rough spot these days and he has to take this role. All right, so Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez. I don't know if you caught this, but when you're watching the movie and Nancy's in her apartment watching another movie or something on television, that's Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez. Also, Miller is in the bar earlier with Marv. So I think that's funny that he was worked in there. But we'll start off with Frank Miller. I think that, you know, he's the only one who got a writing credit here, and I think he did a really solid job translating his work to the screen. It's hard to translate from one medium to another, even when they're both visual, but there's a different format, a different set of narrative and storytelling tools that you have at your disposal. And he did a really nice job with this. I said it was one note in my non-spoiler review, and it is one note, but it's a pretty darn good note. And I think for the span of the film, it's effective. Would I want to see this more? Do I want to see a Sin City 3? I don't think so. I think the only direction this could possibly go is maybe a television show. But I don't know if someone's going to make this kind of level of effort artistically to deliver something like this episodically. Maybe if it's only like 10 episodes like The Knick right now, which is quite good, by the way. Love The Knick. But I could see maybe that is where Sin City could be headed next, because it already is episodic, as I said. But Miller, you know, he did such a horrible job on The Spirit, but I guess he learned some lessons from that, and he does a much better job here. I think the script is well written, so well written to the point that while it's not good enough for me to say it's a well-written movie, I'm a little suspicious that Frank Miller didn't have any help. I'm like, really? I think someone ghosted this for you because it's a lot more of a solid effort than your previous cracks at screenwriting. Now, as for Rodriguez, he's been slumming it a lot lately. He's so concerned with making cheap films over making quality films that I was very concerned about what he would deliver here. He's also become quite misogynistic in a lot of his films, and really gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, gratuitous nudity. I still have a problem that he puts Alexa Vega and the girl from Spy Kids, all grown up, into these really inappropriate situations. I'm like, come on, Rodriguez. You practically were a surrogate father to this girl. And it's like the dad who's like, yeah, my daughter's a stripper and she's really good at it. You're like, really? And he's like, yeah, and I go watch the show because I'm proud of my little girl. And you're like, this is just super creepy. So having him, Alexa Vega in here, just reminds you of kind of like who Robert Rodriguez really is. However, he was able to control it enough for this movie, and there were such great artistic choices here in terms of some of the shots and the color and the use of black and white and the lighting, as I said, that it's really, I think, one of the better things he's done ever in his career, and it reminds you why people liked him so much in the first place. That when he focuses and he isn't like, isn't this cool, and how cheap it is, and how bitchin' it is, he's actually can be quite the artiste. So I was impressed with a lot of what he did here, and I wish that he was working this hard all the time when he made movies, instead of, I think, phoning it in a lot recently. So really good film, and the more time I have away from it, the more I appreciate it. As I said in my non-spoiler review, I went back and forth between thinking it was awesome and thinking it was total crap, but at the end of the day, as I said, I really do appreciate it for what it was, and I thought it was quite memorable. And as a comic book fan, I really appreciated it. So that's my spoiler review. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please write down below what you thought of Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, and also you can check out some more episodes right now.